Marcus Sterling makes an offhand joke about marrying the first woman to walk into his penthouse party, never imagining that the quiet cleaning lady who accidentally stumbles through his door would take him seriously. What happens next will challenge everything he believes about love, status, and what it truly means to be worthy of someone's heart, revealing a truth that will transform both their lives forever. A story that proves real connection transcends all barriers and will leave you believing in the power of unexpected love. The crystal chandelier cast prismatic rainbows across the marble floor of Marcus Sterling's penthouse as he adjusted his Armani tie for the third time. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan sparkled like scattered diamonds against the velvet night, but Marcus barely noticed. His attention was fixed on the gathering crowd of New York's elite, each guest carefully selected for their net worth, social connections, or potential business value. Another brilliant networking opportunity disguised as a party, Marcus muttered to himself, the words tasting bitter despite the champagne's sweetness. At 32, he had mastered the art of profitable relationships, turning every handshake into a potential deal and every conversation into a calculated investment in his future. His best friend and business partner, David Chen, materialized beside him with 2 fresh glasses of Dom Perignon. "You look like you're attending a funeral instead of your own party," David observed, his tone carrying the familiarity of 20 years of friendship. "What's eating at you this time?" Marcus accepted the champagne but didn't drink. "Look around, David. Really look. Every single person here wants something from me. The women want my money, the men want my connections, and everyone wants to be seen with Marcus Sterling, the golden boy of Wall Street." He gestured toward a group of socialites who were posing for Instagram photos near his Monet. "It's all so predictable, so transactional." David followed his gaze. "You're being dramatic. These are good people." "Good people?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Jennifer Morrison over there? She's been flirting with me all evening, but I happen to know she's drowning in credit card debt. Patricia Hawthorne? She's angling for me to invest in her husband's failing tech startup. And don't get me started on the Kensington twins. They've been taking turns trying to corner me all night." The memory of his last relationship still stung. Veronica had seemed different, genuine, until he'd discovered she'd been secretly recording their conversations, planning to sell the information to tabloids. Trust had become a luxury Marcus could no longer afford. "Maybe you're looking in the wrong places," David suggested gently. Marcus's jaw tightened. "There are no right places, not for someone like me. Every woman I meet either sees dollar signs or wants to climb the social ladder. I'm tired of being a prize to be won instead of a person to be loved." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the entrance. Richard Whitmore, Marcus's lawyer, and one of the evening's more intoxicated guests, had cornered a group of young women and was loudly pontificating about the difficulties of finding genuine love when you're wealthy. "The problem with you, Marcus," Richard called out, his voice carrying across the room, "is that you're too picky. You need to stop overthinking and just commit to someone, anyone." The group around Richard laughed, but Marcus felt his irritation spike. "It's not that simple, Richard." "Of course it is!" Richard gestured wildly, nearly spilling his drink on a nearby guest. "You know what you should do? Make a pact with the universe. Marry the first woman who walks through that door tonight. No questions asked, no background checks, no financial analysis. Just pure fate." The suggestion drew more laughter from the crowd, but Marcus found himself oddly intrigued by the challenge. The alcohol was making him reckless, and the accumulated frustration of years of meaningless relationships was bubbling to the surface. "You're insane," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'm serious," Richard pressed on, sensing an opportunity for drama. "What's the worst that could happen? At least you'd know she's not here for your money. She wouldn't even know who you are." David shot Marcus a warning look, but it was too late. The crowd had latched onto the idea, and their encouraging shouts were feeding Marcus's growing impulse to do something, anything, to break free from the suffocating predictability of his life. "Fine," Marcus announced, the words escaping before his rational mind could stop them. "The first woman to walk through that door, assuming she's single and over 21, I'll ask to marry me. Right. Here, right now, in front of all of you." The room erupted in cheers and applause. Someone started a betting pool on whether he'd actually go through with it. Others began taking videos, ready to capture what they assumed would be either a hilarious rejection or Marcus chickening out at the last moment. David grabbed Marcus's arm. "You can't be serious. This is insane, even for you." But Marcus was already committed, the champagne and years of romantic disappointment combining into a perfect storm of reckless determination. "I'm tired of playing it safe, David. Maybe Richard's right. Maybe I need to trust fate instead of my spreadsheets." "What if she says yes?" David pressed. "What if she actually takes you seriously?" Marcus laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "Come on, David, look at this place, look at these people. What are the odds that some random woman is going to walk through that door and actually believe that a complete stranger wants to marry her? It'll be good for a laugh, everyone will get their entertainment, and maybe I'll finally prove my point about how absurd this whole dating scene has become." The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. The crowd had positioned themselves strategically around the main entrance, drinks in hand, phones ready. Marcus stood near the door, his heart hammering against his ribs in a way that had nothing to do with the champagne and everything to do with a growing realization that he might have just made the biggest mistake of his life. "Maybe no one's coming," David whispered hopefully. "It's after 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. This whole thing will just blow over and—" The sound of a key turning in the lock cut through the conversation like a knife. The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on the door as it slowly began to open. Marcus's mouth went dry. In all his reckless planning, he'd never actually considered what would happen if someone did show up. His penthouse was on the 42nd floor of an exclusive building with strict security. The only people who had keys were the cleaning staff. Elena Vasquez stepped through the doorway, her arms full of cleaning supplies and her head down as she fumbled with her keychain. She was still wearing the uniform of the building's cleaning service, a simple navy blue dress that had seen better days, comfortable shoes worn soft from long hours on her feet, and a name tag that read Elena in block letters. She looked up and froze, her dark eyes widening in shock as she took in the sea of elegantly dressed people staring at her in complete silence. A bottle of glass cleaner slipped from her arms and hit the marble floor with a sharp crack that echoed through the room like a gunshot. I'm so sorry," Eleanor stammered, her slight accent adding a musical quality to her panic. "I didn't know there was a party. The schedule said Tuesday night cleaning for apartment 4202, but I can come back tomorrow or—" "Wait," Marcus heard himself say, his voice sounding strange and distant to his own ears. Up close, Elena was nothing like the women who usually populated his social circle. She had to be in her late 20s, with long dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and no makeup except for a touch of lip balm that made her mouth look soft and natural. Her face was heart-shaped, dominated by expressive brown eyes that held a mixture of embarrassment and genuine concern for having interrupted his party. But it was something else that caught Marcus off guard, the way she immediately began picking up her scattered supplies, apologizing profusely while trying to back toward the door. There was no calculation in her movements, no attempt to use the situation to her advantage. She just wanted to disappear, to minimize the disruption she'd caused. The crowd was murmuring now, some laughing softly at the unexpected turn of events. Marcus could hear fragments of conversation. Is he really going to do it? She's actually quite pretty. This is either brilliant or insane. Elena had gathered her supplies and was almost at the door when Marcus found his voice again. "Please don't go." She turned back, confusion written across her features. "Sir, I really shouldn't be here. I can finish the cleaning tomorrow when you don't have guests. I'm very sorry for the interruption." Marcus took a step toward her, acutely aware that every person in the room was hanging on his next words. Richard was grinning like a Cheshire cat. David looked like he was about to have a heart attack, and the assembled guests were practically vibrating with anticipation. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, though he'd already seen it on her name tag. "Elena," she replied softly, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "Elena Vasquez. I work for Premier Building Services. This is my first week on this route, and I think there might have been a scheduling mistake." "Elena," Marcus interrupted gently, "this is going to sound completely insane, and I want you to know that you can absolutely say no without any consequences for your job or anything else." Elena's brow furrowed. "I don't understand." Marcus glanced at David, who was frantically shaking his head, then at Richard, who was nodding encouragingly. The weight of his impulsive promise pressed down on him, but something about Elena's genuine confusion and obvious discomfort made him want to protect her from becoming a spectacle. "Before you walked in," Marcus began carefully, "I made a very stupid bet with my friends. I said I would ask the first woman to walk through that door to marry me." Elena blinked, clearly convinced she'd misheard. "Marry you? I know how it sounds," Marcus continued, raising his voice slightly so the room could hear. "I know we've never met. I know this is the most ridiculous thing you've probably ever heard, and I know you have absolutely no reason to say anything but no." Elena stared at him for a long moment, her cleaning supplies still clutched in her arms like a shield. Marcus found himself memorizing the details of her face, the way her eyebrows drew together when she was thinking, the small scar above her left eye, the way she bit her lower lip when she was nervous. "Are you making fun of me?" Elena asked quietly, and there was something in her voice that made Marcus's chest tighten. Unexpectedly. "No," he said immediately, and he realized with surprise that he meant it completely. "I'm not making fun of you. This started as a joke, but looking at you right now, I don't think it's funny anymore." The room was so quiet that Marcus could hear the distant hum of traffic 42 floors below. Elena shifted her supplies to one arm and unconsciously tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture so unconsciously graceful that Marcus felt something shift in his chest. "You're serious," Elena said, and it wasn't a question. "I'm serious," Marcus confirmed. Elena looked around the room at all the expectant faces, then back at Marcus. Something flickered in her expression, a flash of what might have been pain, or longing, or perhaps just exhaustion. "Okay," she said simply. The word hung in the air for a heartbeat before the room exploded into chaos. Guests were shouting, laughing, applauding, and taking pictures. Richard was cackling with glee. David looked like he needed medical attention, and someone in the back was already calling for a minister. But Marcus barely heard any of it. His entire focus was on Elena, who was standing in the middle of the commotion, looking like she'd just jumped off a cliff and wasn't sure if her parachute was going to open. "Did you just say, okay?" Marcus asked, stepping closer so he could hear her over the noise. Elena nodded, her grip tightening on her cleaning supplies. "You asked me to marry you. I said, okay." Marcus felt the world tilt slightly on its axis. In all his calculations, in all his cynical assumptions about how the evening would play out, he had never actually considered the possibility that she would say yes. Now that it had happened, he was discovering that he had no idea what to do next. "Why?" he asked, the question escaping before he could stop it. Elena's smile was small and sad, and it transformed her entire face. "When was the last time someone asked you to marry them?" The simple question hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought of Veronica, of all the women who had wanted to marry him for his money or status, but who had never simply wanted to marry him. He thought of his parents, whose marriage had been a strategic merger rather than a love match, and his own growing certainty that genuine connection was impossible for someone in his position. "Never," he admitted. "Then you understand," Eleanor said softly. Before Marcus could respond, Richard appeared beside them with a laptop and a manic gleam in his eye. "I found an ordained minister online. He's agreed to perform the ceremony via video call for $5,000. Marcus, you're getting married tonight." The crowd cheered again, but Marcus found himself studying Elena's face, searching for any sign of calculation or opportunism. Instead, he saw something that looked remarkably like resignation, as if she was going through with this not because she expected to gain something, but because she had nothing left to lose. "Eleanor," Marcus said, his voice barely audible over the celebration around them, "are you sure about this?" She looked directly into his eyes, and for a moment, the chaos of the party faded away. "Are you?" Marcus realized that he didn't have a good answer to that question. What he had started as a joke was rapidly becoming the most real thing that had happened to him in years. This woman, this stranger, had agreed to marry him without knowing his net worth, his social status, or even his last name. She was looking at him as if she was trying to see who he really was underneath all the trappings of wealth and success. "Set up the video call," Marcus told Richard, never taking his eyes off Elena. "Let's do this." The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of activity. Someone had cleared a space in front of the windows overlooking the city, creating an impromptu altar. Elena had set down her cleaning supplies and allowed one of the female guests to loan her a silk scarf as a makeshift veil. Marcus had removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, suddenly feeling overdressed for his own wedding. The minister appeared on Richard's laptop screen, looking bemused but professional as he guided them through the abbreviated ceremony. Marcus found himself holding Elena's hands. They were smaller than his, calloused from work and trembling slightly. He wanted to tell her that she could still back out, that this was insane, that he would make sure she was protected regardless of what happened next. But when the minister asked if Elena Vasquez would take Marcus Sterling to be her lawfully wedded husband, she looked directly into his eyes and said, "I do," with such quiet conviction that Marcus felt something fundamental shift in his understanding of himself. When it was his turn, when the minister asked if Marcus Sterling would take Elena Vasquez to be his lawfully wedded wife, Marcus discovered that the words came surprisingly easily. "I do." The kiss that sealed their marriage was gentle, almost hesitant, as if they were both afraid of breaking the spell that had somehow transformed a ridiculous bet into something approaching sacred. Elena's lips were soft and warm, and she tasted faintly of mint and something else he couldn't identify, something that was purely her. The room erupted in applause and celebration, but Marcus found himself reluctant to let go of Elena's hands. She was looking up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read, something between wonder and terror. "So," Elena said, her voice barely audible over the noise, "what happens now?" Marcus realized he had no idea. In all his careful planning of business deals and social strategies, he had never once considered what it would be like to be married to someone he'd known for less than an hour. The practical implications were staggering: legal entanglements, financial complications, the media attention that would inevitably follow. But looking at Elena, at his wife, Marcus found that the practical consideration seemed less important than the growing realization that something significant had just happened, something that went beyond the impulsive bet or the crowd's entertainment. "Now," Marcus said, taking her hand and leading her away from the celebration, "we talk." They found refuge on the balcony. where the cool night air provided a welcome contrast to the heated atmosphere inside. The party continued without them, the guests apparently content to celebrate their successful matchmaking from a distance. Elena had removed the borrowed scarf and was leaning against the railing, looking out over the city lights. In profile, with the wind stirring her hair, she looked younger and somehow more vulnerable than she had in the bright lights of the penthouse. "This is crazy," Elena said, not looking at him. "Completely insane," Marcus agreed, joining her at the railing. "I can have the marriage annulled tomorrow if you want. No questions asked, no complications." Elena was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus found himself holding his breath, waiting for her answer. To his surprise, he realized that he didn't want her to say yes. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said finally. "Anything. Why did you really make that bet? And don't tell me it was just because you were drunk or bored. There was something else." Marcus considered lying, giving her some smooth explanation that would make him sound less pathetic. Instead, he found himself telling the truth. "Because I'm tired of being seen as a paycheck instead of a person. Because every relationship I've ever had has been transactional in some way. Because I wanted to know what it would feel like to have someone choose me without knowing what they could get from me." Elena turned to look at him, and he was surprised to see understanding in her eyes rather than judgment. "And you?" Marcus asked. "Why did you say yes? You don't know anything about me. I could be a serial killer or a con artist or completely insane." Elena's laugh was soft but genuine. "You could be, but you asked me nicely and you seem to actually care about my answer. When was the last time someone did that?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications that neither of them seemed ready to explore. Instead, Marcus found himself studying Elena's profile, trying to understand how a woman he'd known for less than 2 hours had somehow managed to see through defenses that had taken him years to build. "Tell me about yourself," Marcus said. "Your family, your job, what you were doing before you accidentally walked into my life." Elena's expression grew guarded. "There's not much to tell. I moved here from Phoenix 6 months ago. I work 3 jobs, the cleaning service, weekend shifts at a diner, and I help out at a community center when I can. No family to speak of, at least not anymore." There was pain in her voice when she mentioned family, a carefully controlled hurt that made Marcus want to push for more information and simultaneously respect her privacy. "What brought you to New York?" "Fresh start," Elena said simply. "Sometimes you need to go somewhere where no one knows your story." Marcus understood that feeling more than he cared to admit. Despite being surrounded by people who had known him for years, he often felt like they only knew the version of himself that he presented to the world. Successful, confident, untouchable Marcus Sterling. The real Marcus, the one who sometimes lay awake at night, wondering if anyone would love him without his money, remained carefully hidden. "What about you?" Elena asked. "Besides making impulsive marriage proposals, what do you do?" "I run an investment firm," Marcus said, then caught himself. "Actually, that's not what you asked. You asked what I do, not what my job is." Elena tilted her head, waiting for him to continue. "I worry," Marcus admitted. "I worry about making the wrong decisions that could cost other people their money. I worry about whether the people around me actually like me or just want something from me. I worry about turning into my father, who died alone in a hospital room because he'd spent so much time building his empire that he forgot to build relationships." The confession surprised him with its honesty. He hadn't talked about his father's death with anyone, not even David. "How long ago did he die?" Eleanor asked gently. 2 years ago. Heart attack in his office at 11 p.m. on a Sunday. He was working on a deal that would have made him another $50 million, money he would never live to spend. Elena was quiet for a moment, and Marcus braced himself for the usual platitudes about how sorry she was for his loss. Instead, she asked, "Are you like him?" The question was direct, uncompromising, and it cut straight to the heart of Marcus's deepest fears. "I'm trying not to be," he said honestly, "but sometimes I think I'm fighting a losing battle. The demands of my business, the expectations of my social circle, the constant pressure to maintain a certain lifestyle, it all pulls me in the same direction he went." "Is that why you made the bet tonight?" To do something he never would have. And done. Marcus considered the question, surprised by Elena's insight. Maybe. He would have been horrified by the idea of marrying someone without a complete background check, credit report, and family tree analysis. What would he have thought of me? The question was asked casually, but Marcus could hear the underlying vulnerability. Eleanor was still looking out over the city, her hands gripping the railing tightly enough that her knuckles were white. "He would have thought you were beneath our social class," Marcus said bluntly. "He would have focused on your job, your background, your bank account, and he would have missed everything important about you." "What's important about me?" Marcus turned to face her fully, studying her profile in the glow of the city lights. "You said yes to a stranger's crazy proposal without asking what you'd get out of it. You apologized for interrupting a party you had every right to be at according to your work schedule. You're standing here talking to me like I'm a normal person, instead of trying to figure out how to leverage this situation for maximum advantage." Eleanor finally looked at him, and Marcus was struck again by how expressive her eyes were. "Maybe I'm just naive, or maybe you're genuine in a way that most people aren't brave enough to be." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the traffic move through the canyon of buildings below. Marcus found himself feeling more relaxed than he had in months, despite the fact that he'd just made the most impulsive decision of his life. "Elena," Marcus said eventually, "I want you to know that whatever happens next, I'll make sure you're taken care of. If you want the annulment, I'll handle all the legal complications. If you need anything, a better job, a place to stay, help with any problems you might have, just ask." Elena's expression grew troubled. "Why would you do that?" "Because you trusted me enough to say yes, even though you didn't know anything about me. That means something. What if I said I wanted to try to make this work, actually try to be married?" The question caught Marcus off guard. In his mental catalogue of possible outcomes, he had focused primarily on damage control and exit strategies. The possibility that Elena might actually want to stay married to him had seemed too remote to consider seriously. "Do you want to try?" he asked. Elena was quiet for a long time, and Marcus found himself studying her face, looking for clues about what she was thinking. When she finally spoke, her voice was so soft he had to lean closer to hear her. "I've spent the last 6 months trying to build a life for myself, trying to prove that I could make it on my own. But it's been so lonely, Marcus. I work all the time, I don't have friends, and sometimes I go days without having a real conversation with another person." The honesty in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten. He thought about his own isolation, how surrounded by people he could be while still feeling fundamentally alone. "When you asked me to marry you," Elena continued, "it was the first time in months that someone had asked me to be part of something, even if it was crazy. And when I said yes, when I saw the look in your eyes, I felt like maybe I wasn't invisible anymore." Marcus reached out and gently touched her hand where it rested on the railing. "You're not invisible. Elena, not to me." She turned her hand over, palm up, and their fingers intertwined naturally. The simple contact sent a warmth up Marcus's arm that had nothing to do with physical attraction and everything to do with human connection. "So what do we do?" Elena asked. "We figure it out as we go," Marcus said. "We get to know each other. We see if there's something real here worth building on, and we try not to let the circumstances of how we met overshadow what we might become. And If it doesn't work, then we'll know we tried, and we'll end things with respect and kindness instead of lawyers and recriminations." Elena smiled, and Marcus realized it was the first completely natural, unguarded expression he'd seen from her all evening. That sounds reasonable for an unreasonable situation. The sound of the sliding door opening interrupted their conversation. David appeared on the balcony, looking like he'd spent the last hour questioning every decision that had led to this moment. "Marcus, I hate to interrupt, but the party's winding down and people are asking questions about logistics." Marcus sighed, reality intruding on the bubble of intimacy he and Elena had created. "What kind of questions?" "Well, Richard's been telling everyone about your new wife, and there's already speculation about whether this was a publicity stunt or if you've finally lost your mind. Plus, Eleanor's supervisor from the cleaning company showed up. Apparently, someone called to complain about the service disruption." Eleanor's face went pale. "Mrs. Patterson is here. Oh God, I'm going to be fired." "Actually," David said with a slight smile, "Marcus already took care of that. He bought the cleaning company about 20 minutes ago." Marcus had the grace to look embarrassed. "I may have gotten a little carried away with the problem solving. I wanted to make sure your job was protected." Eleanor stared at him. "You bought an entire company to, keep me from getting fired? It seemed like the logical solution at the time." "You're insane." "Probably, but you married me anyway, so what does that say about your judgment?" "Despite everything," Elena laughed. The sound was clear and genuine, and it made Marcus feel like he'd accomplished something important. David cleared his throat diplomatically. "There's also the matter of where Elena will be staying. I assume the two of you will want some time to figure things out before making any major decisions about living arrangements." Marcus realized he hadn't thought about the practical implications at all. Eleanor presumably had her own apartment, her own life, her own routine that didn't include being married to a millionaire she'd met 2 hours ago. "I have a guest suite," Marcus offered. "Complete privacy, your own entrance if you want it. No pressure, no expectations, just a safe place to land while we figure out what we're doing." Elena looked uncertain. "I should go back to my apartment. I have work tomorrow, and I need to process what just happened." "What if I drive you home?" Marcus suggested. "We could stop somewhere for coffee, maybe continue talking without quite so much audience participation." Elena glanced through the sliding door at the remaining party guests, several of whom were openly staring at them with undisguised curiosity. "Okay," she said, "but I should get my cleaning supplies first." "Leave them," David said, "and quickly. I'll make sure they get back to the company. You two should probably make your exit before someone decides to call the press." The suggestion of media attention made Elena look panicked, and Marcus felt a surge of protectiveness that surprised him with its intensity. "Don't worry," he told her. "I have ways of keeping things private when I need to." 20 minutes later, they were in Marcus's Tesla, driving through the relatively quiet streets of Manhattan. Elena had given him an address in Queens, a 40-minute drive that felt both too long and not nearly long enough. Elena had been quiet since they left the penthouse, staring out the window at the passing cityscape. Marcus found himself stealing glances at her, trying to reconcile the reality of her presence with the surreal events of the evening. "Regrets?" he asked as they stopped at a red light. Elena considered the question seriously. "Not regrets exactly, more like overwhelm. 6 hours ago, I was worried about whether I'd have enough money to make rent this month. Now I'm married to someone who bought a company on impulse to keep me from getting fired. For the record, Premier Building Services was undervalued and represents a solid investment opportunity. Buying it wasn't entirely altruistic." Elena turned to look at him, one eyebrow raised. "Are you trying to justify your impulse purchases to make me feel better about them?" "Maybe a little." "Don't. One of the things I liked about tonight was that you did something without calculating the return on investment first. It felt human. The light turned green and Marcus accelerated smoothly through the intersection. Elena's comment stayed with him though, because she was right. Most of his decisions were filtered through layers of analysis and risk assessment. Tonight, he had acted purely on instinct, and the results had been more surprising and satisfying than anything he'd achieved through careful planning. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said as they turned onto the Queensborough Bridge. "Of course. What happens when the novelty wears off? When you remember that I'm just a cleaning lady who happened to walk through the wrong door at the right moment?" The question was asked matter-of-factly, without self-pity, but it revealed an assumption that made Marcus feel inexplicably sad. "Eleanor, you're not just anything. You're a woman who works 3 jobs to support herself, who moved across the country to start over, who had the courage to say yes to a crazy stranger's proposal. Those aren't small things. They're not impressive things either, not compared to running an investment firm and buying companies on a whim." Marcus pulled the car over to the side of the bridge and put it in park. The city sparkled around them, Manhattan behind and Queens ahead, and Elena looked at him in surprise. "What are you doing?" "I need you to understand something," Marcus said, turning to face her. "The money, the penthouse, the business, those are just circumstances. They don't make me a better person or more worthy of respect than anyone else. If anything, they've made my life more complicated and isolated. But they're still part of who you are. Yes, but they're not the most important part. And they're definitely not the reason I'm sitting in this car with you right now, hoping that maybe we can figure out how to make something real out of this insane beginning." Elena was quiet for a moment, and Marcus could see her processing his words, trying to decide whether to believe him. "What is the reason?" she asked finally. Marcus thought about all the superficial answers he could give, all the smooth explanations that would make him sound less vulnerable. Instead, he chose honesty. "Because when you said yes tonight, you looked at me like I was worth taking a chance on. Not my portfolio, or my connections, or my social status. Just me. It's been a long time since anyone looked at me that way." Elena's expression softened, and she reached out to touch his cheek gently. The gesture was so unexpected and tender that Marcus felt something loosen in his chest, some knot of tension he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" Elena said softly. "The lonely millionaire and the isolated cleaning lady, trying to figure out if we can build something real out of a moment of mutual desperation. When you put it like that, it sounds almost romantic." Elena laughed, and the sound filled the small space of the car with warmth. "In a deeply dysfunctional way, maybe it is." Marcus started the car again, and they continued toward Elena's apartment in comfortable silence. When they arrived at her building, a modest brick structure in Astoria that had seen better days, Marcus felt a pang of guilt about the contrast between their living situations. "This is me," Elena said, not moving to get out of the car. "It's nice," Marcus said, and he meant it. The building looked well-maintained despite its age, and the neighborhood had the kind of lived-in character that his sterile luxury high-rise lacked. "Would you like to come up for coffee?" Elena asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. "I mean, actual coffee, not a euphemism. I'm not ready for tonight to be over yet." Marcus smiled. "I'd like that very much." Elena's apartment was a studio on the 3rd floor. Small but impeccably clean and organized. She had clearly put effort into making the space feel like home, despite its limitations. Plants on the windowsill, colorful cushions on the second-hand couch, photographs and artwork arranged carefully on the walls. Marcus found himself drawn to the photographs while Elena made coffee in the tiny kitchen area. Most were landscapes, desert sunsets, mountain vistas, wide open spaces that spoke of her Arizona origins, But there was one that caught his attention, a picture of Elena with an older woman, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. "That's my grandmother," Elena said, appearing beside him with 2 cups of coffee. "She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. She looks like she was an amazing woman." She was. She died last year, and that's when I decided to move to New York. Phoenix felt too empty without her. Marcus accepted the coffee, gratefully inhaling the rich aroma. It was better than the expensive blend his housekeeper stocked, somehow more satisfying despite, or perhaps because of, its simplicity. They settled on the couch, and Marcus found himself studying the details of Elena's life as reflected in her living space. Everything was carefully chosen and purposeful, from the books stacked neatly on a makeshift shelf to the handmade quilt draped over the back of the couch. "Tell me about your grandmother," Marcus said, settling into the surprisingly comfortable cushions. Elena curled up on the opposite end of the couch, tucking her feet underneath her. "Abuela Maria was the strongest person I ever knew. She came to this country with nothing but determination and a 3rd-grade education, worked as a seamstress for 50 years, and somehow managed to save enough money to put me through college." "What did you study?" "Elementary education. I wanted to be a teacher, like she always dreamed of being, but never had the chance." Elena's voice grew soft with memory. She used to say that education was the only thing no one could take away from you, that it was the key to freedom. Marcus noticed the past tense and the shadow that crossed Elena's face. "What happened to that dream?" Elena was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. "Life happened. After college, I got engaged to someone I thought I loved. He convinced me to move back to Phoenix instead of taking a teaching job in Flagstaff. Said we needed to be practical, that I should get a job with better benefits while he finished his master's degree." The pain in her voice was carefully controlled, but Marcus could hear it underneath the matter-of-fact tone. "I ended up working as a secretary at an insurance company," Elena continued. "It paid well, had good health insurance, and Tony said it was temporary, just until he graduated and found a good job. But it wasn't temporary." Elena shook her head. 3 years later, Tony finished his degree and immediately got a job offer in Denver. I was so excited. I thought we'd finally start the life we'd planned. But when I started looking at teaching positions in Colorado, he told me he'd changed his mind about getting married. Marcus felt a surge of anger toward a man he'd never met. "He left you?" "He said he'd realized we wanted different things, that he needed someone more ambitious, someone who could help advance his career. Turned out he'd been seeing one of his professors, someone with a PhD and family connections in his field." The casual way Eleanor related the betrayal made it somehow more heartbreaking. Marcus could imagine her carefully rebuilding her life after having the foundation pulled out from under her, trying to maintain her dignity while dealing with the humiliation and loss. "So, you stayed in Phoenix?" "For a while. I kept the insurance job, moved to a smaller apartment, tried to convince myself that this was just a setback. But then Abuela got sick, and I realized how much time I'd wasted trying to live someone else's version of my life." Elena set down her coffee cup and pulled the quilt more tightly around her shoulders. "She died on a Tuesday morning in January. I was holding her hand, and her last words to me were, 'Mija, promise me you won't settle for a small life just because it feels safe.'" The quiet intensity of the moment settled over them like a benediction. Marcus found himself thinking about his own choices, his own tendency to prioritize security over authenticity. "Is that why you moved to New York?" "Partly. But also because I needed to prove to myself that I could start over, that I could build something meaningful on my own terms." Elena smiled ruefully. 3 jobs and a studio apartment wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but it was mine. Marcus set down his own coffee cup and leaned forward slightly. Elena, can I ask you something that might sound presumptuous? After the evening we've had, I don't think anything could sound presumptuous anymore. What if you didn't have to work 3 jobs? What if you could go back to school, get your teaching certification for New York, pursue the dream your grandmother wanted for you? Elena's expression grew guarded. I can't let you pay for my life, Marcus. That's not what this is about. I'm not talking about charity. I'm talking about partnership. If we're going to try to make this marriage work, then we should both be free to pursue what makes us happy and fulfilled. And what makes you happy and fulfilled? The question caught Marcus off guard. He realized that he'd been so focused on what he didn't want, the superficial relationships, the transactional nature of his social circle, the pressure to live up to his father's legacy, that he'd never really considered what he did want. I don't know, he admitted. I built my business because I was good at it, and it proved I could succeed on my own terms instead of just inheriting my father's company. But I'm not sure I ever asked myself if it made me happy. Eleanor studied his face carefully. What did you want to be when you were a kid, before you knew about expectations and legacies and what you were supposed to want? Marcus had to think back further than he'd gone in years, past the prep school pressure and college ambitions, past his father's lectures about responsibility and success. A teacher, actually, he said, surprising himself with the memory. I wanted to teach high school history. I used to spend hours reading about different time periods, imagining what it would be like to help kids understand how the past connected to their present. What changed? My father. He said teaching was noble but impractical, that I had responsibilities that came with privilege. He wasn't wrong. The family foundation supports dozens of educational initiatives, and my business generates resources that help a lot of people. But sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd chosen differently. Elena was quiet for a moment, and Marcus could see her processing this information, trying to reconcile the successful businessman with the lost dream of the young man who'd wanted to share his love of history. Maybe it's not too late, she said finally, to become a teacher. Elena, I'm 32 years old and running a multi-million-dollar investment firm. So, I'm 29 and just married a stranger I met 2 hours ago. If we're going to embrace life changes, we might as well go all the way. The matter-of-fact way she said it made Marcus laugh, and he realized that Eleanor had a gift for putting things in perspective, for making the impossible seem merely improbable. You're serious? Why not? What if instead of you funding my dreams while you stay trapped in yours, we both figured out how to build lives that actually fulfill us? Marcus found himself genuinely considering the possibility for the first time in years. I can't just abandon my business. I have investors, employees, responsibilities. I'm not suggesting you abandon anything, but maybe you could find ways to integrate what you love with what you've built. Educational foundations, scholarship programs, maybe even teaching part-time at a university business school. The suggestions were practical and thoughtful, and Marcus realized that Elena was doing something no one in his life had done in years. She was helping him envision a future based on what he wanted, rather than what was expected of him. What about you? Marcus asked. If you could design your perfect life, starting from where we are right now, what would it look like? Eleanor pulled the quilt more tightly around herself, and Marcus could see her allowing herself to imagine possibilities she'd been too practical to consider before. I'd get my New York teaching certification and find a position at a school in a neighborhood that really needed good teachers. I'd have a classroom full of books and art supplies, and I'd help kids discover that learning could be exciting instead of just another requirement to get through. Her voice grew stronger as she continued, and Marcus could see the passion that had been buried under years of compromise and practical necessity. I'd have a bigger apartment, Maybe with a real kitchen where I could cook meals instead of just heating up frozen dinners. I'd adopt a dog from the shelter, something medium-sized with lots of personality. And I'd travel during summer breaks, not expensive vacations, but real trips where I could see how people live in different places and bring those stories back to my students. The vision she painted was so clear and achievable that Marcus felt something like excitement building in his chest. Here was someone who knew what she wanted, who had specific dreams that didn't involve using other people as stepping stones. "That sounds perfect," Marcus said, and he meant it completely. What sounds perfect is the fantasy. The reality would be a lot more complicated, especially if I'm married to someone like you. Someone like me. Elena gestured around her small apartment, then toward the window where Marcus's Tesla was visible on the street below. "Your world and mine don't exactly overlap. Marcus, I shop at thrift stores and clip coupons. You probably spend more on dinner than I make in a week." The observation was stated without bitterness, but it highlighted a fundamental challenge that Marcus hadn't fully considered. Their economic disparity wasn't just about money. It represented completely different approaches to life, different pressures and priorities and social expectations. "Does that matter to you?" Marcus asked. "I don't know yet. It might not matter to me, but it will definitely matter to other people. Your friends, your business associates, your family if you have any. They're not going to understand what you see in the cleaning lady you impulsively married." Marcus thought about his social circle, about the shallow conversations and calculating relationships that had driven him to make his reckless bet in the first place. "Maybe I don't care what they think. You say that now. But what about when it starts affecting your business? When potential clients wonder about your judgment, or when you can't take me to industry events because I don't know how to navigate that world?" The practical concerns Elena was raising were valid, and Marcus appreciated that she was thinking them through rather than just assuming everything would work out through the power of attraction. But her willingness to anticipate problems also revealed something else. She was already thinking like someone who intended to stay. "We'll figure it out," Marcus said, "together. And if people in my world can't accept you, then maybe I need to expand my world." Eleanor studied his face carefully, as if trying to determine whether he really meant what he was saying or if he was just caught up in the romance of the moment. "What if it's harder than you think? What if there are sacrifices you're not prepared to make?" The question was fair, and Marcus knew that the honest answer was that he didn't know. He'd never been in a relationship where the stakes were this high or the complications this complex. But he also knew that sitting in Elena's small apartment, drinking good coffee and talking about dreams and fears felt more real than anything he'd experienced in years. "Then we'll find out together," he said. "But Elena, I need you to understand something. Tonight wasn't just about proving a point or winning a bet. When you said yes, when you took that leap of faith with me, something shifted. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know I don't want to go back to the way things were before." Elena was quiet for a long time, and Marcus could see her weighing his words against her own fears and hopes. "Okay," she said finally, echoing the simple word that had started everything between them. "Okay, meaning you'll give this a real chance. Okay, meaning I'm scared and this is probably crazy, but I'm tired of playing it safe. My grandmother didn't cross a desert and work in sweatshops for 50 years, so I could settle for a life that feels empty." The conviction in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten with something that felt suspiciously like hope. "So, what do we do first?" he asked. Elena smiled, and Marcus was struck again by how it transformed her entire face. "First, I think you should probably go home. We've had enough life-changing decisions for one night, and I need some time to process the fact that I'm married to someone whose car costs more than I've earned in the last 2 years." Marcus laughed, but he could see the wisdom in her suggestion. The intensity of the evening had created a bubble of intimacy that might not survive the harsh light of morning analysis. You're right. But Elena, before I go, I want you to know that whatever happens next, tonight mattered. You mattered. Elena walked him to the door, and they stood in the small entryway for a moment, neither quite ready to end the evening. Will I see you tomorrow? Marcus asked. I work at the diner from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then I have a shift at the community center until 8. But maybe you could call me? We could talk about next steps. Marcus realized he didn't have her phone number, which seemed like a significant oversight for a married couple. They exchanged numbers, and the mundane practicality of it made the surreal evening feel more grounded in reality. Thank you, Elena said as he prepared to leave. For what? For asking. For meaning it. For making me feel like maybe I'm worth taking a chance on. Marcus leaned down and kissed her cheek gently, breathing in the subtle scent of her shampoo mixed with the coffee they'd shared. You are absolutely worth taking a chance on, Elena Sterling. The use of her new last name made her eyes widen slightly, and Marcus realized that neither of them had really processed the legal reality of what they'd done. That's going to take some getting used to, Elena said softly. We have time, Marcus replied, and for the first time in years, he meant it completely. The drive back to Manhattan gave Marcus time to think about the practical implications of his impulsive marriage. By the time he reached his penthouse, the party had ended, and David was waiting for him with a bottle of scotch and an expression that suggested a serious conversation was imminent. Well, David said without preamble as Marcus poured himself a drink. Well, what? Don't be obtuse, Marcus. You just married a complete stranger on a whim. I'm your best friend and your business partner, which means I have both personal and professional concerns about your mental state right now. Marcus settled into his favorite chair and took a sip of the 18-year-old Macallan. My mental state is fine, David. Better than fine, actually. You bought a cleaning company tonight to keep your wife of 2 hours from getting fired. That's not the behavior of someone whose mental state is fine. It was a good investment opportunity. David stared at him. You paid 3 times market value. I was in a hurry. Marcus, I'm serious. What's really going on here? This isn't like you. Marcus considered how to explain what he barely understood himself. The logical, analytical part of his mind agreed with David's concerns. What he'd done was reckless, potentially damaging to his reputation and business, and based on nothing more substantial than intuition and loneliness. But the part of him that had felt more alive during 3 hours with Elena than he had in the previous 3 years didn't care about logic. David, when was the last time I did something that wasn't calculated? I don't know. Maybe never, which is exactly my point. And how has all that calculation worked out for me? I'm successful, I'm wealthy, I'm completely miserable, and I'm surrounded by people who see me as a means to an end rather than a person worth knowing. David set down his drink and leaned forward. So you decided to marry the first woman who walked through your door. Marcus, that's not solving a problem, that's creating a dozen new ones. Maybe. Or maybe it's the first genuine thing I've done in years. What do you know about her, really? Her background, her motivations, her history? What if she's not who she seems to be? The questions were fair, and Marcus had to admit that he knew almost nothing about Elena's background beyond what she'd chosen to share. But somehow, that didn't bother him as much as it should have. What if she is exactly who she seems to be? What if she's someone who works 3 jobs to support herself, who said yes to a crazy proposal because she's as lonely as I am, who's brave enough to take a chance on something real? And what if she's not? Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering the possibility that Elena's motives weren't as pure as they seemed. But even as He tried to summon appropriate paranoia. He found himself remembering the way she'd looked at him on the balcony, the honesty in her voice when she talked about her grandmother, the genuine warmth of her small apartment. "Then I'll deal with it," Marcus said finally. "But David, I'm tired of assuming the worst about everyone. Maybe it's time I started giving people the benefit of the doubt." David rubbed his temples, clearly struggling with his role as both friend and voice of reason. "Okay, let's say Elena is exactly what she appears to be, a good person who happened to walk into your life at the right moment. What then? How do you bridge the gap between your worlds?" "We figure it out as we go." "That's not a plan, Marcus, that's hope." "Maybe hope is enough for now." David was quiet for a long moment, studying Marcus's face. Finally, he sighed and refilled both their glasses. "You're really going to do this, aren't you? You're going to try to make this work." "I am." "Then we need to talk about damage control. The press is going to find out about this, and when they do, it's going to be a circus. Your business relationships, your social standing, your family's reputation, everything is going to be scrutinized." Marcus thought about Elena's concerns, about not fitting into his world, about the challenges she'd foreseen that he'd dismissed too easily. "What do you recommend?" "First, we control the narrative. If this story is going to come out, we make sure it comes out the way we want it to. A whirlwind romance, not a drunken impulse. Second, we prepare Elena for what's coming. Media training, a stylist, coaching on how to handle social situations." The suggestions made practical sense, but they also felt wrong somehow. Like David was suggesting they turn Elena into someone else to make her more palatable to his world. What if she doesn't want to be coached and styled and trained to fit in? Then you're going to have to choose between the world you've built and the woman you married. The stark choice David presented hung between them like a challenge. Marcus realized that he'd been assuming he could have both, his successful business life and a genuine relationship with Elena. But David was probably right that the reality would be more complicated. "Have you considered," David said gently, "that this might not be fair to her? That you might be pulling her into something she's not prepared for?" The question hit Marcus harder than he'd expected. In his focus on what Elena could bring to his life, authenticity, warmth, genuine connection, he hadn't fully considered what his world might cost her. "What do you mean?" "I mean that marrying you changed her life in ways she probably can't even imagine yet. The scrutiny, the pressure, the expectations, it's a lot for anyone, but especially for someone who values privacy and independence." Marcus thought about Elena's small apartment, her careful budget, her pride in supporting herself through hard work. David was right that marriage to him would inevitably change all of that, whether she wanted it to or not. "So, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that if you really care about her, you'll make sure she understands what she's getting into before it's too late to change her mind." The conversation with David stayed with Marcus through a largely sleepless night. By morning, he had reached a decision that surprised him with its clarity. He was going to be completely honest with Eleanor about the challenges ahead, even if it meant she decided to walk away. At 8 a.m., Marcus called Eleanor, catching her during a break at the diner where she worked the morning shift. "How are you feeling?" he asked without preamble. "Like I married a stranger last night," Elena replied, but there was warmth in her voice that made Marcus's chest tighten with relief. "Elena, we need to talk, really talk, about what this means and what it's going to cost you." "That sounds ominous." "It's realistic. Can I pick you up when you get off work? There are some things I need to show you, some people you should meet, before you decide whether you want to stay married to me." Elena was quiet for a moment. "Marcus, are you trying to scare me away?" "I'm trying to make sure you have all the information you need to make an informed decision." "Okay, pick me up at 2:30. "But Marcus..." "Yes? Whatever you think you need to tell me, it's not going to change what I felt last night. It might change what I decide to do about it, but it won't change the fact that for the first time in months, I felt like I mattered to someone. After hanging up, Marcus spent the morning making arrangements. He called his publicist, his lawyer, and his financial advisor, setting up meetings that would give Elena a complete picture of what being married to Marcus Sterling actually meant. He also called his mother. Patricia Sterling had been in Milan for Fashion Week when Marcus married Eleanor, which meant she'd learned about her new daughter-in-law through a gossip blog rather than from her son. The conversation that followed was exactly as uncomfortable as Marcus had expected. A cleaning lady, Marcus? Really? Her name is Eleanor, mother, and she's not defined by her job any more than I'm defined by mine. Don't be naive, darling. Of course you're defined by your position. We all are. It's how society functions. Marcus thought about Elena's apartment, her photographs, her dreams of teaching. Maybe society is wrong. Society is reality, Marcus. And the reality is that you've created a situation that's going to be very difficult for everyone involved. What do you mean? I mean that your little bride is about to discover what it's like to be married to someone with our family's profile, the attention, the scrutiny, the expectations. It's not something you can prepare someone for overnight. Patricia's words echoed David's concerns, and Marcus felt a growing unease about what he might be subjecting Eleanor to. Maybe she's stronger than you think. For her sake, I hope so. But Marcus, you need to understand that this affects more than just you. The Sterling Foundation, the family's charitable work, your business relationships, everything is going to be examined through the lens of this marriage. Are you asking me to choose between my family's reputation and my wife? I'm asking you to consider whether one impulsive decision is worth the consequences it's going to have for everyone else. The conversation ended without resolution, leaving Marcus more conflicted than ever about the path he'd chosen. By the time he picked up Elena at the diner, he was questioning whether David and his mother were right, whether he was being selfish in pursuing something that might ultimately hurt Elena more than it helped her. Elena was waiting outside when he arrived, having changed from her work uniform into jeans and a simple sweater that somehow made her look younger and more vulnerable than she had the night before. "You look serious," she observed as she got into the car. "I've been thinking about what David said last night and what my mother said this morning." "You told your mother about me?" "She found out from a gossip blog. Apparently someone at the party posted something on social media." Eleanor's face went pale. "It's already public." "Just rumors so far, but yes. Elena, that's part of what I need to explain to you. My life isn't private in the way yours has been. Everything I do gets scrutinized, analyzed, and judged by people who have their own agendas." Marcus pulled the car over and turned to face her. "I want to show you what you're potentially signing up for. But I also want you to know that if it's too much, if you decide this isn't what you want, I'll understand completely." Elena studied his face carefully. "Are you trying to convince me to leave?" "I'm trying to make sure you stay for the right reasons, with a full understanding of what that choice means." "Okay, show me." Marcus drove them to his office building first, a gleaming tower in the financial district that housed Sterling Investments on the top 5 floors. As they rode the elevator to the 48th floor, Marcus watched Elena take in the marble, brass, and understated luxury that surrounded them. "This is your world," Elena said, and it wasn't a question. "Part of it." The elevator doors opened to reveal the reception area of Sterling Investments, all floor-to-ceiling windows and contemporary art. The receptionist, a perfectly groomed woman in her 30s, looked up with a professional smile that faltered slightly when she saw Elena. "Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling. I wasn't expecting you today. Just showing my wife around, Carolyn." "Is David in?" The word wife caused Caroline's perfectly applied makeup to shift almost imperceptibly, but she recovered quickly. "Yes, sir. Shall I let him know you're here?" "Please." As they walked through the office, Marcus was acutely aware of the attention they were drawing. His employees were too professional to stare openly, but he could feel their curiosity like a physical presence. Eleanor walked beside him with quiet dignity, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. David's office overlooked the harbor, and he was on a phone call when they arrived. He gestured for them to sit while he finished the conversation, and Marcus used the opportunity to watch Eleanor's reaction to the obvious wealth and power represented by their surroundings. "It's beautiful," Eleanor said softly, looking out at the view of the Statue of Liberty in the distance. "It's also a fishbowl," Marcus replied. "Everyone who works here, everyone who does business with us, everyone who reads the financial papers, they all have opinions about my personal life. And now they'll have opinions about me." "Yes." David finished his call and turned his attention to them with a smile that was warm but careful. "Elena, it's good to see you again. How are you processing everything?" "One revelation at a time," Elena replied with a small smile. "Marcus is giving me the full tour of what I've gotten myself into. And what do you think so far?" Elena looked around David's office, taking in the awards, the photographs with political and business leaders, the obvious markers of success and influence. "I think Marcus is right that your worlds are very different from mine. But I also think that might not be entirely a bad thing." David raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Well, from what I can see, you've all been very successful at building something impressive. But Marcus told me last night that he sometimes feels isolated, that he's not sure if people like him, for who he is, or what he can do for them." Elena turned to look directly at Marcus. "Maybe that's what happens when you only spend time with people who have similar goals and similar resources. Maybe you've forgotten what it's like to be around people who want different things." The observation was astute and delivered without judgment, but Marcus could see that it had an impact on David. "What do you want, Eleanor?" David asked. "I want to teach children. I want to make enough money to live comfortably, but not so much that I lose track of what's important. I want to travel and learn and grow. And I want to be with someone who sees me as a partner, not a project or a problem to be solved." The simple clarity of her answer highlighted everything that had been missing from Marcus's relationships in the past. Elena's goals were specific but not calculated, ambitious but not ruthless. "Those are good things to want," David said finally. "They're also things that don't necessarily require Marcus to choose between his business and his personal life," Eleanor added. "Unless you think I'm going to be a distraction or an embarrassment." David glanced at Marcus, clearly weighing his words carefully. "I think you're going to face challenges that you might not be prepared for. The attention, the scrutiny, the pressure to conform to certain expectations." "What kind of expectations?" Marcus answered before David could. "The expectation that you'll quit your jobs and become a full-time society wife. The expectation that you'll dress a certain way, socialize with certain people, support certain causes. The expectation that you'll become someone else to fit into my world." Elena was quiet for a moment, and Marcus could see her processing the implications. "What if I don't want to become someone else? Then you'll be criticized for not being appropriate for someone in my position. And what if I do change to fit in? Then you might lose the things about yourself that made me want to marry you in the first place." The honest acknowledgement of the no-win situation hung between them like a challenge. Marcus realized that he was essentially asking Eleanor to navigate a maze where every path led to some form of compromise or loss. "There's something else," Marcus said reluctantly. "My mother wants to meet you and she's not particularly enthusiastic about our marriage." Elena's expression grew guarded. "She disapproves of me. She disapproves of the situation. She thinks I've made an impulsive decision that's going to have negative consequences for everyone involved." Has she met me? No. Then maybe she should, before she decides I'm a negative consequence. The quiet strength in Elena's voice reminded Marcus of why he'd been drawn to her in the first place. Instead of being intimidated by the challenges ahead, she seemed to be approaching them as problems to be solved, rather than reasons to retreat. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Marcus asked. "I'm sure I want to try. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. I'm not going to change who I am to make other people comfortable. If your mother, your friends, your business associates can't accept me as I am, then maybe the problem isn't with me." David smiled for the first time since they'd arrived. "I think I'm beginning to understand what you see in her, Marcus." The meeting with Marcus's mother was scheduled for that evening at her Upper East Side townhouse, a venue that Patricia Sterling had chosen specifically to emphasize the social distance between her world and Elena's. Marcus spent the drive preparing Elena for what was likely to be a challenging encounter. "My mother isn't deliberately cruel," Marcus explained as they pulled up to the imposing brownstone. "But she has very specific ideas about propriety and social responsibility. She's going to test you, but not necessarily in obvious ways. What should I expect? Questions about your background, your intentions, your plans for the future. She'll be polite, but she'll be looking for weaknesses or inconsistencies." Elena nodded, straightening her shoulders in a gesture that Marcus was beginning to recognize as her way of preparing for battle. Patricia Sterling received them in her formal living room, a space that managed to be both elegant and intimidating. She was an attractive woman in her early 60s, perfectly dressed and accessorized with the kind of bearing that came from a lifetime of social privilege. "Marcus, darling," she said, kissing her son's cheek before turning her attention to Elena, with a smile that was warm in appearance but cool in execution. "And you must be Elena. How lovely to finally meet you." "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Sterling," Elena replied politely. "You have a beautiful home." "Please call me Patricia. We're family now, after all." The way she said "family" suggested that she was still processing this development herself. She invited them to sit, and Marcus watched nervously as his mother began what he recognized as her standard social interrogation. "Elena, Marcus tells me you're from Arizona originally. What brought you to New York?" "I wanted a fresh start after my grandmother died. She'd always talked about New York as a place where people could reinvent themselves." "And have you? Reinvented yourself, I mean?" Elena considered the question seriously. "I think I'm still in the process. Moving here taught me that I'm more resilient than I thought, but also that I need more than just survival to be truly happy." "What makes you happy?" "Teaching. Working with children who need someone to believe in them, making a difference in small but meaningful ways." Patricia's expression softened slightly, and Marcus realized that Eleanor had somehow found common ground with a woman who had devoted much of her life to educational philanthropy. The Sterling Foundation supports several educational initiatives, Patricia said. "Perhaps you'd be interested in learning about them." "I'd like that very much." The conversation continued for another hour, covering Elena's background, her education, and her plans for the future. Marcus watched his mother's initial skepticism gradually give way to something approaching respect as Elena answered questions honestly and thoughtfully. "Elena," Patricia said as the evening was winding down, "may I speak frankly?" "Please do. When I first learned about your marriage to my son, I was concerned that you might be motivated by factors other than genuine affection." Elena met Patricia's gaze directly. "You thought I was a gold digger." "The possibility had occurred to me, yes. And now," Patricia was quiet for a moment, studying Eleanor's face. "Now I think you're either exactly what you appear to be. A genuine, thoughtful young woman who happened to walk into my son's life at the right moment, or you're the most sophisticated con artist I've ever encountered." Elena smiled, and Marcus was relieved to see that she wasn't offended by his mother's bluntness. "I can understand why you'd be suspicious. If I were in your position, I'd probably feel the same way. But you're not going to try to convince me that your motives are pure." "My motives are complicated," Elena said honestly. "I said yes to Marcus partly because I was lonely, partly because I was curious, and partly because something about him made me want to take a chance. But I also said yes because I'm tired of playing it safe, and marrying a stranger seemed like the kind of risk that might lead to something extraordinary." The honesty of the answer seemed to surprise Patricia, and Marcus could see his mother reassessing her initial judgment. "And what do you hope to gain from this marriage?" "A partner. Someone who sees me as an equal rather than a project or a subordinate. Someone who challenges me to be better while accepting who I am right now." "And what are you prepared to give in return?" Elena glanced at Marcus before answering. "The same thing. Partnership, respect, support for his goals and dreams, including the ones he's forgotten he has." Patricia followed Elena's gaze to Marcus, and her expression grew thoughtful. "What dreams has my son forgotten? He wanted to be a teacher when he was younger. He still lights up when he talks about history, about the connections between past and present, but he's convinced himself that success means sacrificing what you love for what you're good at." Marcus felt exposed by Elena's observation, but also seen in a way that was both uncomfortable and deeply satisfying. "Teaching doesn't pay well," Patricia observed. "No, but it pays in other ways, and Marcus has enough resources to choose meaning over money if he wants to. You would support him in making such a dramatic career change?" "I would support him in finding ways to integrate what he loves with what he's built. There are ways to honor both his responsibilities and his passions." Patricia was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus could see her processing everything Elena had said. Finally, she turned to her son with an expression he hadn't seen since he was a child. "Marcus, do you love her?" The question caught Marcus off guard, partly because it was so direct and partly because he realized he didn't have a simple answer. What he felt for Elena was complicated. Attraction, respect, gratitude, hope, and something deeper that he wasn't ready to name yet. "I don't know if what I feel is love yet," Marcus said honestly, "but I know that Elena makes me want to be better than I am. She makes me believe that maybe I can have both success and authenticity." Patricia nodded slowly, then turned back to Elena. "And you? Do you love my son?" Elena's answer was equally honest. "I love the possibility of who we might become together. I love that he asked me to marry him without calculating what he'd get in return. I love that he's willing to risk his reputation to see if we can build something real." "But you don't love him yet?" "Not yet, but I'm open to the possibility, which is more than I've been able to say about anyone in a very long time." Patricia stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street below. Marcus and Elena waited in silence while she processed the conversation. "Elena," Patricia said finally, "you seem like a remarkable young woman, but I hope you understand that marrying Marcus means accepting responsibilities that go beyond your personal relationship." "What kind of responsibilities?" The Sterling family has been prominent in New York society for 3 generations. We support numerous charitable causes, we have obligations to our community, and we're subject to a level of public scrutiny that can be overwhelming. Marcus could see Elena absorbing this information, and he found himself holding his breath as she considered the implications. "Are you asking me to become someone I'm not?" "I'm asking you to consider whether you're prepared to become more than you are now. There's a difference." Elena stood up and joined Patricia at the window. "Mrs. Sterling, Patricia, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you happy with the life you've built, the responsibilities you've accepted, the person you've become?" The question was gentle but penetrating, and Marcus could see that it caught his mother off guard. Patricia was quiet for a long moment before answering. "I'm fulfilled. I've had a meaningful life. I've contributed to causes I believe in, and I've raised a son I'm proud of. But are you happy?" Happiness is a luxury that people in our position can't always afford to prioritize. Elena turned from the window to look at both Patricia and Marcus. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe when you stop prioritizing happiness, you lose track of what makes life worth living. The observation hung in the room like a challenge, and Marcus realized that Elena had just articulated something he'd been feeling but hadn't been able to express. "What are you suggesting?" Patricia asked. "I'm suggesting that maybe Marcus and I can find a way to honor your family's legacy while also creating space for joy and authenticity. Maybe we can support important causes while also making room for personal fulfillment." Patricia studied Elena's face carefully. "And you think you can do all of that while working 3 jobs and living in a studio apartment in Queens?" "No," Elena said with a smile. "I think we can do it by combining our resources and our different perspectives to create something new." The evening ended with Patricia walking them to the door, her demeanor noticeably warmer than it had been when they arrived. "Elena," she said as they prepared to leave, "I want you to know that while I may have reservations about the circumstances of your marriage, I don't have reservations about you. Thank you. That means a lot. I hope you'll consider joining me for lunch next week. There are some people I'd like you to meet, some projects you might find interesting." After they left Patricia's house, Marcus and Eleanor drove through Central Park in comfortable silence, both processing the events of the day. "That went better than I expected," Marcus said finally. "Your mother is formidable, but she's not cruel. I think she's just protective of you. What did you think of everything today? The office, the expectations, the reality of what being married to me actually means." Eleanor was quiet for a moment, and Marcus found himself tensing in anticipation of her answer. "I think it's complicated, but not impossible. I think there are going to be challenges I haven't anticipated, and I think some people are never going to accept me, but I also think you're worth it." The simple declaration made Marcus's chest tighten with an emotion he wasn't ready to name. "Elena, I need you to know that if you decide this is too much, if you change your mind about any of this, I won't try to talk you out of it. I'll respect your decision and make sure you're protected. And if I decide I want to stay, if I want to really try to make this work..." Marcus pulled the car over again, this time on a quiet street overlooking the reservoir. The city lights reflected on the water like scattered stars, and Eleanor looked almost ethereal in the soft glow. "If you decide to stay," Marcus said, turning to face her, "then we figure out how to build a life together. We find ways to bridge our different worlds. We support each other's dreams, and we see if what we felt last night can grow into something lasting." Elena reached across the space between them and took his hand. "Marcus, I want you to know that marrying you wasn't just about being lonely or taking a risk. When you asked me, when you looked at me like I was someone worth knowing, it was the first time in months that I felt like myself again." "What do you mean?" "I mean that since I moved to New York, I've been so focused on just surviving that I forgot what it felt like to live. Working 3 jobs, counting every penny, having no time for friends or hobbies or anything that brought me joy. I was existing, but I wasn't really alive." Elena's voice grew stronger as she continued. "But last night, when you asked me to marry you, when you talked to me like my opinions mattered, when you shared your own fears and dreams, I remembered what it felt like to be a whole person instead of just a collection of survival strategies." Marcus brought their joined hands to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. "You make me feel like a whole person too. Like maybe there's more to life than just accumulating achievements." They sat in the car overlooking the water, talking until the early hours of the morning. They shared stories about their childhoods, their failures and disappointments, their hopes for the future. Marcus told Elena about the pressure he'd felt to live up to his father's legacy, and Elena told Marcus about the dreams she'd deferred and the risks she'd been too afraid to take. As the sun began to rise over the city, they made a decision that surprised them both with its clarity. They were going to try to make their improbable marriage work. "So, what's our first step?" Elena asked, as Marcus drove her back to her apartment. "Well, we should probably move in together at some point. It's going to be hard to build a relationship when we're living in different boroughs." Elena smiled. "Your place or mine?" Marcus looked at her small building with its fire escapes and flowering window boxes, then thought about his sterile penthouse with its marble floors and spectacular views. What if we found somewhere new, somewhere that belongs to both of us instead of just one of us? That sounds perfect. 6 months later, Marcus and Elena were living in a converted brownstone in Brooklyn, a compromise between his need for security and her desire for a neighborhood with character. Elena had enrolled in a master's program to get her New York teaching certification, funded by a scholarship from the Sterling Foundation that she'd earned through a competitive application process. Marcus had restructured his business to focus more on socially responsible investing and had begun teaching a weekly seminar at Columbia Business School. Their marriage wasn't perfect. They still navigated cultural differences, economic disparities, and the ongoing challenge of merging their very different social circles. But it was real in a way that neither of them had experienced before, Elena found. Her calling teaching 5th grade at a public school in Bed-Stuy, where her bilingual skills and genuine care for her students made her an immediate favorite. Marcus discovered that his business acumen and passion for history made him an effective advocate for educational reform, and he began to understand how wealth could be a tool for meaningful change rather than just personal accumulation. On their 6-month wedding anniversary, they had dinner at the same diner where Elena had worked when they first met. The owner, Mrs. Chen, had become something of a surrogate grandmother to Elena, and she insisted on preparing a special meal to celebrate. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked, as they shared a piece of homemade apple pie. "The bet, the impulse, the way everything happened?" Marcus considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, his life had been predictable, successful, and empty. Now it was complicated, challenging, and full of possibility. "Never," he said, and he meant it completely. "Do you?" Elena smiled, the same expression that had captivated him from the moment she'd agreed to his crazy proposal. "Never. Though I do sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd been 10 minutes late that night. Someone else would have walked through that door, and I would have made the same proposal to them. And it would have been a disaster, because they wouldn't have been you." Elena laughed, the sound filling the small diner with warmth. "That's incredibly romantic for someone who married me on a bet." "Who says the bet wasn't romantic? Maybe the universe knew what it was doing when it sent you to apartment 4202 at exactly the right moment." "You think the universe was matchmaking?" Marcus reached across the table and took her hand, marveling at how natural the gesture had become. "I think sometimes the best things in life happen when you stop trying to control every outcome and start trusting that some risks are worth taking." Elena squeezed his hand. "In that case, I have a confession to make." "What kind of confession?" "I wasn't supposed to clean your apartment that night. The schedule had been changed, but I never got the memo. I only went to your building because I was avoiding going home to my empty apartment." Marcus stared at her. "You mean you were there by mistake? Complete accident? Wrong place, right time? And you didn't think to mention this before now?" Elena grinned, and Marcus realized that she'd been saving this revelation for exactly the right moment. Would it have changed anything? Marcus thought about all the forces that had to align perfectly for them to meet. His impulsive bet, her scheduling mix-up, their mutual loneliness, their willingness to take an impossible chance on each other. "No," he said finally, "it wouldn't have changed anything. Except maybe it makes the whole thing even more miraculous." Miraculous. Too lonely. People, both hiding from their real lives, both ready to risk everything on the possibility that someone might see them for who they really were. If that's not a miracle, I don't know what is. Elena leaned across the table and kissed him softly, tasting like apple pie and promises. "I love you, Marcus Sterling." "I love you too, Elena Sterling." It was the first time either of them had said the words, but they felt inevitable, like the natural conclusion to a story that had begun with a joke and blossomed into something neither of them had dared to hope for. As they walked home through the tree-lined streets of their Brooklyn neighborhood, past the bodega where Elena bought her morning coffee and the community center where Marcus had started volunteering, they talked about their plans for the future. Elena wanted to start a literacy program for immigrant children, and Marcus was considering running for the school board. They discussed travel, children, the possibility of buying a house with a yard where they could plant a garden. Their dreams were no longer individual aspirations, but shared visions, woven together through months of learning to trust each other with their hopes and fears. When they reached their brownstone, Marcus paused on the front steps and looked back at Elena. In the glow of the streetlight, she looked exactly as she had that first night. Beautiful, genuine, and brave enough to say yes to an impossible question. "Elena," he said, "would you marry me?" She laughed, understanding immediately that he was offering her the proposal she deserved, the one that came from love rather than impulse. "Marcus Sterling," she said, "I thought you'd never ask." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes, forever and always." This time, when they kissed to seal their promise, there was no audience, no cameras, no witnesses except the quiet Brooklyn night. There was only Marcus and Elena, two people who had found in each other the courage to build a life that honored both their dreams and their shared commitment to something greater than themselves. The Millionaire's joke had become the foundation of a love story that proved sometimes the most beautiful things in life begin with the most improbable moments. And sometimes the first woman to walk through your door is exactly the person you were waiting for, even if you never knew you were waiting at all. As they climbed the steps to their home together, Marcus realized that his father had been wrong about one thing. The most valuable investments weren't always calculated ones. Sometimes the greatest returns came from the risks that made no sense on paper but perfect sense to the heart. Elena Sterling, formerly Elena Vasquez, cleaning lady turned teacher turned wife turned partner, had taught him that love wasn't a transaction to be negotiated, but a leap of faith to be celebrated. And Marcus Sterling, formerly a lonely millionaire hiding behind his success, had learned that the richest life was one shared with someone brave enough to believe in impossible possibilities. Their story would be told for years afterward, in newspaper articles about unconventional love stories, in speeches at charity galas about the power of taking chances, in whispered conversations among friends who wondered whether they would have been brave enough to say yes to a stranger's proposal. But the real story wasn't about the dramatic beginning or the fairy tale ending. The real story was about two people who chose each other every day, who worked to bridge their differences, who supported each other's growth, and who proved that authentic love could flourish even in the most unlikely circumstances. Marcus Sterling had joked about marrying the first woman to walk through his door, never imagining that Elena Vasquez would take him seriously. But she had, and in doing so, she had given them both the greatest gift of all, the chance to discover that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the simplest word, yes.